السلام عليكم داوديال meel kastoo ay joogtaan ku soo dhawaada barnaamij qaas ah oo amaanta kaga hadli doono doorashooyinka Mareykanka oo haatan si xawli u socdo maadaama codeyntii hordhaca ahayd ay bilaabatay doorashadan waxay soo afjarmi doontaa bisha 8 hadii ay baydmo boosas badan ayaa jira oo loo tartamaya maanta studio waxa ay martay noogu ah Carly Edelson oo u tartamaysa District 10 Court of Appeal ee Franklin County waxaana ka wareysan doonaa waxyaabaha ay ku soo kordhin karto community-ga Soomaalida iyo waxyaabaha kale ay ka faa'iideysan doonaan ummadda ay maaragtay degan Franklin County.
Thank you so much for having me.
Can you tell us who is Carly?
Sure. I will start with I became a teacher first before I became a lawyer. I was actually teaching in a community a lot like some of the communities around Columbus, out in Los Angeles. I taught 6th graders English and history, and I absolutely loved teaching my kids, but it was a community where almost all of my students qualified for free or reduced cost lunch. There was no library in the school. Their parents were working multiple jobs just to get food on the table, and they didn't have access to quality health care. And so I and the teacher in the classroom felt absolutely powerless to address all of these systemic issues that were facing their lives. So that's what pushed me to decide to go to law school. Lawyers have a lot of power, and I wanted to leverage all of that power to create change for my students and for kids like them and for communities like the one I was teaching in. And so I've been doing that ever since, and I became a lawyer so that I could create change for people. I can tell you a little bit about some of the experiences, but for the most part, the bulk of my legal career has been working for the Federal Court of Appeals that covers Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee, and writing opinions on behalf of a judge, making sure our Constitution and our laws were being interpreted in ways that didn't violate people's rights. I worked at the U.S. Department of Education in their Office for Civil Rights, where I was making sure kids could learn free from discrimination in schools, discrimination on the basis of race, national origin, sex, and disability. I worked here in Columbus at Equitas Health, which is a healthcare organization that serves low-income folks in the LGBT community and people who are living with AIDS, HIV. I was providing free legal services to folks who needed it. And now I'm a public defender. I'm an appellate public defender at the Ohio Public Defender's Office. So that means every day I am in the courts of appeals all over the state and in the Ohio Supreme Court representing some of the people who are most marginalized by our systems. So that's me as a lawyer. I'm also a mom. I have 2 young daughters, 1.5 and 3.5 years old. I live in Worthington with my husband, who is originally from here, and we've decided to make our home here in Central Ohio.
So what encouraged you to run for this specific position?
Sure. So, certainly I have a lot of experience working in the courts of appeals, in the state courts of appeals and in the federal court of appeals. Through all the work that I've done, especially on behalf of marginalized communities, I've seen the courts get it right, but I've also repeatedly seen the courts fail to do justice. And justice isn't my clients win every case, but it does mean that my clients, when they're finished with their experience in our legal system, they believe their voice was heard, and they believe they were given an equal chance at the right result in their case. And so that is really what pushed me to run. Certainly there were folks who were whispering in my ear that I would make a great judge, but it was really the experience of seeing this happen over and over again that encouraged me to run.
Yeah, because you mentioned that you have a very good experience in education, and it's #1, and it's much needed in our communities, especially for the Somali communities. And we have a lot of, cases with the youth now getting trouble in, and you'll see, their whole life is being thrown to the river. So what can you, not promise, but, would tell the community that you'd be able to do as a judge once you get elected in this specific position?
Yeah. Well, I think every judge, their role is to apply the law equally and fairly to the facts of any case that comes before them. And so I can't necessarily take a position on certain issues or on certain cases before they come before me, but I can assure the Somali community and all people in Franklin County that I will be a fair judge. And I think what that means is making sure that everyone in the courtroom, everyone in the court system has access to the necessary information to make informed decisions for themselves. And I'll give you an example of that, of when I did that as a lawyer. and some of the sort of gaping holes that we have in our system that we really need to plug up so that people don't fall through the cracks. I have a client who 10 years ago, she pleaded guilty in a case in Ohio to possession of a very tiny amount of marijuana. Not enough time to have to go to jail or prison, but she pleaded guilty, and she asked her lawyer before she pleaded guilty, will I be okay? She had a green card. She was here legally for many, many years, and she asked her attorney, am I going to be okay? And her attorney said yes. It turns out she went back 10 years later to renew her green card. She was told by immigration attorneys who were helping her that she actually had become deportable when she pleaded guilty to that minor misdemeanor for marijuana possession. Her attorney had not provided her accurate information about the immigration consequences of her conviction. So she was facing deportation. She had a child in the United States who was a United States citizen, and she herself couldn't renew her green card. So she came to me, and we actually worked to be able to withdraw her guilty plea and to negotiate a better resolution to her case that would not make her deportable so she could stay in this country. It was all about access to information. She would not have entered that plea had she had the right information. And so my goal is, regardless of what community someone is from, but certainly people for who don't regularly experience our criminal legal system or our civil legal system, to make sure that everybody has necessary information to be informed about their own case. That goes to when I write briefs for the courts. I want to make sure that all of my clients, many of whom have lower levels of English and reading ability than I do, but I want to make sure they can read what I've written. I want them to understand what I'm advocating on their behalf. As a judge, I would do the same thing. I would write in a way that people can truly understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is the same story that we can all relate, especially in our community, that, you know, we maybe the second and the first generation here, but we grew up in a culture that, you know, you don't question the authority, even if you're right or wrong.
Right.
And I've seen a lot of cases that people will have a minor traffic problem that can be fixed, but then it can cause a lot of issues. And thank you for talking about that. And we wish you the best. And if you want to send a message to all the voters in the community and everywhere in, you know, Franklin County, what would you like to say?
Sure. I think that, one, it's wonderful that you are watching this right now, because it is so difficult to find information about your judicial candidates. Regardless of who you vote for, it's important that you go into the ballot box informed. We are all out at early voting, introducing ourselves to voters. We would love to come to have you come talk to us. And wherever you are in the state of Ohio, making sure that you are informed about your judicial candidates is absolutely wonderful. I feel very privileged that I have received the support of a number of labor organizations, religious organizations, civil rights organizations, environmental organizations. I received a 5-star rating from the Columbus Bar Association's screening committee, which is nonpartisan, or it's divided equally across the political spectrum. People on all different parts of the legal profession who have decided that I am a highly recommended candidate for this race. My colleagues in the Bar Association as well have said that I'm the preferred candidate in my race. And I think that goes to the fact that I have quite a bit of experience. I have a lot of compassion that I've gained from working with people who are often silenced by our systems. And so I'm grateful for all of that. And I hope to be able to earn the support of folks who are watching right now.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate it for you to come all the way here and, you know,
course.
Explain yourself to our audience. That is not something, you know, every candidate is willing to do. So in Somali we say mahadsanid. Haba intaas ayaan kusoo afjarnaynaa barnaamijkeeni maanta aan ku wareysanaynay Carly Edelson oo u tartamayso maxkamadda abiilka ee District 10 ee Franklin County. Intaas ayaan barnaamijkeeni kusoo afjaraynaa haddii baa idma intii aan mar kale dib u kulmi doono.